You are listening to Mission Audio's production of Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross. This book is read by P.J. Ochlan. This audio recording was produced in 2016 by Mission Audio, which owns the copyright. No portion of this recording may be reproduced for any reason without prior written consent from Mission Audio. Please visit booksinaudio.com to offer your impressions of this work and to explore additional titles. Introduction. Somewhat reluctantly, out of respect for a venerable tradition, we publish The Dark Night as a separate treatise, though in reality it is a continuation of the Ascent of Mount Carmel and fulfills the undertakings given in it. The first night, or purgation, is of the sensual part of the soul, which is treated in the present stanza, and will be treated in the first part of this book. And the second is of the spiritual part. Of this speaks the second stanza, which follows. And of this we shall treat likewise in the second and the third part, with respect to the activity of the soul, and in the fourth part, with respect to its passivity. This fourth part is the dark night. Of it, the saint writes in a passage which follows that just quoted. And the second night, or purification, pertains to those who are already proficient, occurring at the time when God desires to bring them to the state of union with God. And this latter night is a more obscure and dark and terrible purgation, as we shall say afterwards. In his 3 earlier books, he has written of the active night, of sense and of spirit. He now proposes to deal with the passive night in the same order. He has already taught us how we are to deny and purify ourselves with the ordinary help of grace, in order to prepare our senses and faculties for union with God through love. He now proceeds to explain, with an arresting freshness, how these same senses and faculties are purged and purified by God with a view to the same end, that of union. The combined description of the 2 nights completes the presentation of active and passive purgation, to which the saint limits himself in these treatises, although the subject of the stanzas which he is glossing is a much wider one, comprising the whole of the mystical life, and ending only with the divine embraces of the soul, transformed in God through love. The stanzas expounded by the saint are taken from the same poem in the 2 treatises. The commentary upon the second, however, is very different from that upon the first, for it assumes a much more advanced state of development. The active night has left the senses and faculties well prepared, though not completely prepared, for the reception of divine influences and illuminations in greater abundance than before. The saint here postulates a principle of dogmatic theology, that by himself, and with the ordinary aid of grace, man cannot attain to that degree of purgation which is essential to his transformation in God. He needs divine aid more abundantly. However greatly the soul itself labors, writes the saint, it cannot actively purify itself so as to be in the least degree prepared for the divine union of perfection of love, if God takes not its hand and purges it not in that dark fire. The passive nights, in which it is God who accomplishes the purgation, are based upon this incapacity. Souls begin to enter this dark night when God draws them forth from the state of beginners, which is the state of those that meditate on the spiritual road, and begins to set them in the state of progressives, which is that of those who are already contemplatives, to the end that, after passing through it, they may arrive at the state of the perfect, which is that of the divine union of the soul with God. Before explaining the nature and effects of this passive night, the saint touches
Sample complete. Ready to continue?